Okay, my name is Meg Graham, and today I'm going to talk to you about the parathyroid gland because I love to share knowledge with you, and I even love to make these videos more than just sharing knowledge with you. First of all, where is it located? Well, the parathyroid gland is located on the back side or the posterior surface of the thyroid gland. You remember your thyroid gland is located right here in your throat. It's a butterfly shaped, has two wings, and then a little isthmus connecting the two wings. Well, we're looking on the posterior side of that. So if you look on the back side of that, you'll see four little pea-shaped sized glands here, and those are your parathyroid glands. Now, most people, this is the way it looks, but some people, they may have 8 parathyroid glands. Some people may have parathyroid glands that are not actually on the surface of the parathyroid, but they're actually, the surface of the thyroid, but they're actually just floating around in the neck tissue. But your normal setup is that you have 4 parathyroid glands located on the posterior surface of the thyroid gland. Now, if you look at your parathyroid gland, you have 2 main cell types. You have what are called the chief cells, and that's the predominant cell type. And the chief cells secrete the hormone, parathyroid hormone, and that's the main hormone that's going to control calcium ions in the blood. And we're going to talk a lot about that in just a minute. The other cell type you have is the oxyphil cell, and their function is really unclear. We know that during puberty, the oxyphil numbers increase, and then as you start to age, the oxyphil numbers decrease. But we know the cells are grouped together, but we really don't know what the heck they do. The other thing that you'll have in the parathyroid gland is adipose tissue, and that starts increasing with age. You know, you start depositing more fat in your gut and your butt, and now they're going to put it in your parathyroid gland. Aging just sucks all around. All right, well, let's look at some facts about the parathyroid hormone. First of all, we said that it's produced by the chief cells, and the whole point of it is to maintain calcium ion levels in the blood. Now, you need calcium to be controlled and kept at this homeostatic level because calcium is important for muscle contractions. It's important for transmitting nervous impulses. It's also important for transmitting or causing blood clotting. Remember, a lot of those clotting factors need calcium as a cofactor. And if you want to not get blood to clot, remember you put it in a tube with a calcium chelator and then it won't clot. So you've got to have calcium for a lot of different reasons in your body, and so we want to make sure we keep it at a homeostatic level. The control of parathyroid hormone is humoral control. Now remember, humor, that's just one of those blood liquids. Humors are liquids in the body, so the particular liquid in this case is blood. And so we're looking at blood levels of calcium, okay? Now, as you raise the calcium levels back up with the parathyroid hormone, you're going to have negative feedback that's going to turn it off. So you start out with low blood calcium, and then you increase your parathyroid hormone, and that's going to raise your blood calcium, and when your calcium levels go up, that is going to negatively come back and turn off the turn off the parathyroid hormone. All right, let's look at some specific actions of parathyroid hormone. First of all, it's going to act 3 main ways. You've got a direct effect that it's going to go to the bones, and it's going to cause the osteoclast activity to increase. Now remember, parathyroid hormone is going to be released when you have low blood calcium. So we want to get calcium levels built back up. So we go to the bone, we start telling the osteoclasts, all right, start breaking down bone. And remember, bone is made of that hydroxyapatite crystals, and those are formed from calcium and phosphates. So when you start breaking down the hydroxyapatite, you're going to get an increase in calcium and phosphates. Well, then you can send the parathyroid hormone to the kidneys, and in the kidneys, calcium ions are going to be directly reabsorbed. So it's going to cause an effect. That parathyroid hormone is going to cause the kidney to directly reabsorb those calcium ions. We don't want them getting shot out with the urine and excreted, so we want to save every one we can. So the parathyroid hormone is going to tell the kidney, reabsorb all of these calcium ions. Now remember, we also had some excess phosphate ions when we broke down that bone with the PTH, but we don't need those. So the parathyroid hormone is going to say, kidneys, excrete the phosphate. We don't really want that. We're looking for calcium. Another thing that's going to happen in the kidneys is the parathyroid hormone is going to cause the conversion of inactive vitamin D to an active form of vitamin D, which we call calcitrol. Now, you have to have vitamin D in order to absorb calcium from your intestines. So like when you eat something that has calcium in it, you've got to have vitamin D in this active form in order to absorb it. So parathyroid hormone is going to indirectly go to your intestines and through this calcitrol, and that's going to cause you to increase your calcium absorption from the intestines. So let's just look at this next picture and kind of sum all this up. So you start out here, you have your little parathyroid glands here, and they're going to sense low blood calcium. So they're going to release parathyroid hormone. Okay? Parathyroid hormone is going to go to the bone, where it's going to activate the osteoclast to tear down bone and release calcium and phosphates. Okay? So that increased calcium is going to go back in and say, okay, blood calcium, you're going up. All right, the next thing parathyroid hormone is going to do is it's going to go to the kidneys, and it's going to cause the kidneys to reabsorb calcium. Well, that's going to increase the blood calcium. It's also going to go to the kidneys and tell them to activate vitamin D into an active form called calcitrol. And then that calcitrol is going to go down to the intestines and allow us to increase the absorption of calcium from our foodstuff. So now we're going to get increased calcium absorption from our intestines. And so all three of these things are going to come back and they're going to increase or raise our calcium levels. Well, once the calcium levels go up, then that's going to cause a negative feedback, and it's going to turn off the parathyroid hormone because you're going to get everything back where it needs to be. So you have humoral control, where you're looking at the levels of calcium in the blood, and then you have negative feedback, which turns it off when the calcium levels get to the right level. All right. The only way to talk about calcium ions in the blood, though, is you've got to talk about this other hormone called calcitonin. Now, calcitonin doesn't have anything to do with the parathyroid gland itself. It's actually formed by the parafollicular cells of the thyroid gland. Sometimes you see these cells called extrafollicular cells or clear cells, so you can tell what they look like. They're clear. But these cells are the cells that, like if you have your colloid follicles in the thyroid gland, they're para. Para means near, or by, so parafollicular cells. So they're the cells by the follicles, and these are the ones that release this hormone called calcitonin. Well, if you look at calcitonin and parathyroid hormone, they're kind of riding a seesaw together. So you've got parathyroid hormone on one side and calcitonin on the other side. And remember with a seesaw, if one goes up, the other one goes down. If the other one goes up, the other one goes down. So they're just kind of balancing things out and maintaining that homeostatic level of calcium ions in the blood. So parathyroid hormone is going to cause you to increase blood calcium. Calcitonin is going to cause you to decrease blood calcium. And you can remember this by just saying calcitonin tones down calcium levels in the blood. Okay, that's just the easiest way to remember it. All right, well, how does it tone down the calcium levels in the blood? The first thing it's going to do is it's going to target osteoblast. Remember, osteoblast build bone. So they're going to build bone by taking that calcium from the blood and then depositing it into the bone. So the osteoblast will get active, and they'll take that calcium out of the blood and put it into the bone and store it. Calcitonin is also going to inhibit osteoclasts. We don't want to be breaking down any bone because that's going to release calcium, and we've already got too much. So we're going to inhibit the osteoclasts. So we're going to encourage the osteoblast to build bone and take that blood calcium and put it into the bone. We're going to inhibit osteoclasts from breaking down any bone and releasing calcium into the blood. Now, all of this calcitonin gets real active during childhood. Remember, when you're growing, you've got to start building bones, and you also are kind of starting a savings account for the future for your calcium. So you put as much calcium in your bones when you're young as you can. And a lot of people these days especially are not having very good diets, and they're going to be calcium poor when they get older. But you deposit all that calcium in with that calcitonin into your bones when you're younger. Then when you're older, you have to start taking it out. And if you didn't save enough when you were younger, when you start taking it out, you're going to start removing so much that you start getting things like osteoporosis and brittle bones and you start getting all humped over and looking really old. So you want to go ahead and make sure you get enough calcium when you're younger, and it's that calcitonin that's going to help you to store it into your bones. Now, calcitonin also works on humoral control, so we're looking at the levels of blood calcium. So when blood calcium gets low, or excuse me, when blood calcium gets high, calcitonin is going to be released to kind of tone that level down, okay? And then once you get it back down to the right level, negative feedback is going to come back and turn it off, turn the calcitonin off so that you're not releasing more. All right, finally, let's look at a couple disorders of the parathyroid gland. So we're back in the parathyroid gland now. Remember that calcitonin was with the thyroid gland, but I mentioned it just because they work together, parathyroid hormone and calcitonin, to keep calcium levels in their homeostatic range. All right, but excuse me, some disorders of the parathyroid gland. First of all, you have hypoparathyroidism. I cannot talk. Hypoparathyroidism. That's where you have too little parathyroid hormone. Now, if you don't have enough parathyroid hormone, you're not going to have enough calcium, and you get something known as hypocalcemia, or less calcium than you need. Now, what could cause this? Well, if you remove the thyroid gland and inadvertently take the parathyroid glands with it, you're not going to have any parathyroid hormone. Or if you have some sort of trauma to your parathyroid and thyroid gland, that might mess up your parathyroid hormone levels. But anyway, the result of this is you're not going to have enough calcium in your blood. And you've got to have calcium, because without it, your muscles are not going to work well, your nervous transmission's not going to work well. You're going to kind of start getting a little hyperactivity of these, and so you might start off with just little twitches, you like my muscle twitch? Anyway, you'll start off with muscle twitches, and those muscle twitches can progress into convulsions and tetany and literally can kill you, okay? So you have to make sure you have enough calcium in your blood, or you could literally die from it. Well, what do you think the treatment is? If you don't have enough calcium in your blood, you drink and eat more calcium. So you just increase your oral intake of calcium, and along with that, they're going to want to probably put you on some vitamin D supplements to make sure that you're getting enough vitamin D so that you can actually absorb that calcium when you take it into your body. The other disorder of the parathyroid gland would be your hyperparathyroidism. Hyper means too much. So if you have too much parathyroid hormone, you're going to get something known as hypercalcemia. Remember, parathyroid hormone is going to increase the blood levels of calcium. Well, if you increase the blood levels of calcium, that's going to cause some problems too. Now remember, this is a rare condition. It's usually only caused by something like a proliferative tumor of the chief cells in the parathyroid gland. So it's not real common, but as you get this too much parathyroid hormone, you're going to start pulling out calcium from your bones to try to make sure you're keeping those calcium levels up, because that's what parathyroid hormone is telling your body to do, keep the blood levels up of calcium. So you're going to start leaching the calcium out of your bones. You're going to get soft, porous bones. You can even get bone deformity. You're going to have muscle weakness. You're not going to have enough, or you're going to have too much calcium, and it's going to make your muscles not work correctly. You're going to have so much calcium that you're going to start depositing it in abnormal places, especially in your kidney. You're going to start getting kidney stones where you're just not able to filter out so much of this calcium. So it can cause some problems. Now, the treatment for this would be to lower the blood calcium. You've got to get it down. So obviously you could give calcitonin, and that would lower your blood calcium. Another thing you could do is you could give the biphosphonates. You learned about those in 201. Those are things like Boniva and Fosamax. You remember the Sally Field commercial? I take Boniva and it makes my bones happy, blah, blah, blah. Well, anyway, what it's doing is those drugs will stimulate osteoblast, and so the blast will take that excess calcium in the blood and build bone with it. So that's how it makes stronger bones. So if you take something like Boniva or Fosamax, that can take that calcium from your blood and put it into your bones and make things better. And then finally, there's another drug known as Sensipar. Can't talk and spell at the same time. But anyway, this is a drug that actually lowers the parathyroid hormone levels in your body. Well, if you have decreased parathyroid hormone, then you're going to have decreased blood calcium, and that'll take care of it. So I hope you learned something today. As always, I have loved spending this time with you. Bye.